This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
When you hear the horror stories about germs in hotel rooms, I'm talking about high-touch surfaces immediately come to mind. And that means like switches, remote controls, and phones, those type of things. There was a new study that found that there are other major culprits like decorative pillows, duvet covers, baths, glasses, and ice buckets. Oh, God, gross. So, of course, you don't see the bacteria on these items, but just like you might glaze over hidden fees in your 401k. So, what do you suggest if someone hasn't taken the steps to address this overall?
Well, I would say think about it. I mean, because there's things we can do. We don't want to freak ourselves out, but it is that same way with investment portfolios. I mean, we see a certain creep that comes in there where people are pursuing strategies that no longer make sense for that season of their life. You know, they're too aggressive, for example, or we often see an absolute overlap that takes place, particularly in 401k environments where so many of the investment options are actually similar. People don't realize that different mutual funds have the same kind of holdings in them, and so we see an overconcentration in certain areas that's not healthy. We often also see that people will have a more expensive version of a particular asset than the same institution is offering them in a different fund, for example, which is always interesting to me because you think, well, what was the other advisor thinking, when they could have offered a less expensive fund from the same fund family doing the same thing. But anyways, things like this that require us to do a portfolio diagnostic, which we do as a courtesy for people to help them assess where is your money actually at. Is it doing what you think it's doing, or has there been some kind of a bacterial creep in there, as it were, like the germs you described, that suddenly make this portfolio less healthy than you thought it was? And there's really no way to know it unless you do an x-ray of sorts. You just go in there with the microscope and take a good clean look. So I just did that for someone last week, and it was really interesting to see them overpaying and having excessive turnover in a portfolio that was quite different than what they thought they had. So reality check, and let's take the microscope and do a diagnostic on it for you.
Yeah, a little financial reality check. Nothing too bad about that. Making sure that everything's accounted for. If there's any gaps out there, how can you start filling those gaps? Again, allow Mark to put his over 30 years of experience to work for you. I cannot say it enough. Be one of the first 5 callers right now. That's 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. That website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. If you pay attention to the headlines long enough, you'll hear every possible prediction. We're having a boom, there's a bust coming, everything's a crisis or a catastrophe. Well, for instance, author Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad, Poor Dad recently warned that baby boomers could end up homeless or living in RVs because Social Security and Medicare are what they say, quote, broke. So I looked at a few other bold predictions over the past few years I want to share with you, Mark. Number one, Warren Buffett said an incredible period of economic prosperity would be over by the end of the year. Now, he said this back in 2023. And let's see here. Back in 2023, Harry Dent, he predicted a major market crash, as well as claiming he says NVIDIA would have fell 90 to 98%. That right there is a big statement. Well, joke's on him. The market went up about 20% that year. And then back in 2004, a writer trashed a new stock offering saying the company wouldn't be able to maintain share. Well, folks, that was Google. I think they've done just fine. So how do you help clients tune out the noise and also just stay focused when, of course, we're surrounded by these scary headlines?
Well, I would say anytime someone tries to predict the future when it comes to the markets, then that's a good time to kind of turn off. I mean, you've mentioned some interesting people there. I really liked Robert Kiyosaki's work 30 years ago when I read it as a young dad. Talked about saving and investing. I like that. But since then, he's become an alarmist, and he's always hawking, gold or some other thing to try to hedge against the next catastrophe that's coming. I don't know how Harry Reid gets any recognition anymore because he puts out continual books and articles and interviews, proclaiming the end of the world. I loved his premises again 30 years ago when he was talking about demographics, but he's just become a perpetual predictor of false catastrophes. And so again, I'm not trying to knock anyone. I'm just saying that God alone knows, truly, God alone knows what's coming in the future. I'm not his prophet. He hasn't given me any inside tips on the market. I don't think he really cares about those things. So what we need to do are build portfolios that are designed to withstand whatever life brings. And that's possible to do because there are trends that recur. Certainly there are occasional things like COVID, that come out of the blue for which there hasn't been a precedent. But generally speaking, we need to build portfolios that are designed to last for decades and not for days. If you're constantly trying to question what's coming around the corner, that means you're constantly selling things. Dalbar did a study that they've done many times. Dalbar studies consumer behavior, and they've done a study that basically says people who engage in these reactive kind of behaviors end up earning 1/3 of the market's natural returns. So I would say the best thing you can do is just turn off these media pundits that are trying to predict the future. And in this case, it's trading stocks, and the only winner there is Wall Street. The constant trading generates fees for Wall Street, and that's not in the consumer's best interest. So turn off these financial prognosticators. They don't have any inside view or crystal ball better than each of our own. So let's build a portfolio that's designed to last and withstand whatever comes.
Yeah, you may have heard it said before, planning for retirement, it is a marathon. It is not a sprint, guys. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. It's going to take even some patience. So if you're lacking that, pick some of that up on the way in. Again, guys, a huge discussion, easily one of the biggest you'll ever have in your entire life. So I bring all that to say, why would you not want to work with a professional like Mark here, guys, with over 3 decades of experience? Seems like a no-brainer. Sit down with him, get those questions answered, start putting a plan in place, and making sure you're on the right move, right? Making sure you're going the right direction. That phone number is 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. And again, that website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. This is interesting here, Mark. There seems to be a nationwide phenomenon in fast food restaurants that serve breakfast. Comedian Ben Jones says that that's where you're going to find the Old Man Breakfast Club. Listen to this.
Look in the corner and you'll see a whole cluster of pawpaws, peepaws, papas, grandpas, grandfathers, Vietnam veterans, and senior citizens sitting in the corner having like a sausage biscuit and a senior coffee. These guys get there early, and these are sweet old men. But don't get it twisted. They take this little meetup very seriously. They turn the whole dining area at McDonald's into Cheers. They even have an official name for themselves. They call themselves the Romeo Club. Retired old men eating out.
I love it.
I hope you do, because I think he's onto something there. I mean, it's absolutely true. It's a trend. I mean, I travel back and forth to Utah enough. I'm always stopping in these little McDonald's and other places, typically for the restroom, but early in the morning, there are always a group of guys there. And I take my hat off to them literally, because they're living retirement together. They're having this communal kind of experience. And the thing that really is so painful to watch in retirement is when people become isolated because they leave their old social circles. They leave their old workforce kind of relationships. And there's a joke about the guy who keeps going back to the familiar lunch spot because that's where his coworkers are at. And they're looking at him wondering, doesn't he have anything better to do in retirement? But we need companionship. We're human beings that need a human experience. We need to interact. And I would say that absolutely as important as the financial preparations for retirement is making sure that we still have purpose and meaning and that we have people in our lives that give us joy, that can share our experiences with us, that can carry us through the hard times, and vice versa, that will allow us to carry them through the hard times. So I love this observation. It's absolutely true. The ladies have the Red Hat Society. I don't know if you've seen them, the Red Hat Society and others. I just love it.
I love it. And listen, you're exactly right. These guys, I'm telling you right now, they look forward to every Wednesday we're going to meet at Waffle House, whatever it is. They're looking forward to that every single week. And this is something they'll do for the next 20, 25 years. I love that. I love when he says they're turning the dining hall into Cheers. I mean, how fun is that? They're regulars there. I think that's phenomenal. You're keeping up with your relationships. Yeah, everybody knows your name. Everybody knows you get it scrambled. You get it hard, over easy. I love that. It's just another way to keep expanding those relationships in retirement. And I mean, really, you're exactly right. They are living retirement. And I think that's something that a lot of folks forget about. They go, well, when I retire, what am I going to do? For some reason, all of a sudden, like when you used to go to lunch with your friends, I don't know, a lot of people in retirement go, well, I guess I don't get to do that anymore. Does that make sense?
It does, and there's a study, and I can't remember it precisely, but it breaks my heart every time I read it. I spent a lot of time working in the special needs community with young people who are invisible because of their disabilities, are invisible to people. But there's a study that's been done that talks about the impact of loneliness and how being isolated is as fatal as smoking 10 packs of cigarettes a day. It's become a serious cause of premature death and certainly a lot of pain and suffering along the way. So I was just telling my staff last week in a team meeting how appreciative I was of them. We did a client event out at the park. It was a nature walk, and we had some guests come they had come to some of my public classes at the college. They weren't clients, but they came, and I was thanking my team members because they had just stepped up and greeted these people. There's a wonderful African expression that I see you. I get worked up sometimes thinking about this because we need to be seen as human beings. And one of the most tragic things about retirement is often people just becoming isolated because their circles get smaller and smaller. And so I take my hat off again to these people who develop healthy habits of friendship, and they get out in the community and they do things with each other. They volunteer. God bless them.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, I see you. Listeners, I see you as well. And again, these are things we talk about each and every single week here on the show. So if you have questions about items we're talking about, and of course, just retirement in general, guys, because it can be kind of a big bear. It can be overwhelming and stressful, but it doesn't have to be. That's where Mark comes in, guys. Give him a call today. Again, this retirement roadmap is complimentary just for you. 702-996-4050. That's 702-996-4050. That website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. A recent study found that 25% of Americans think they have a personal Social Security account, kind of like a 401k, just waiting for them in retirement. Of course, that's not the way it really works, guys. What are some other misconceptions about Social Security have you had to clear up over your years of experience?
Oh, my heavens, there's a lot, and I'd encourage people to go to ssa.gov, that's Social Security Administration, so ssa.gov, and learn more about this, or come to our classes. We do these regular classes at the college and all, because too many misconceptions exist about retirement when it comes to Social Security. Social Security was never, ever designed to replace all of a person's income, and too many people think it's going to carry them all the way. It's not. At best, it was designed to carry about 1/3 of a person's living expenses, and the program has problems. Benefits are going to be cut here in the next 7 years unless they make changes. I think they'll make the changes, but the problem is that current workers are funding current retirees, and frankly, there's far fewer current workers than there were when Social Security was established. Back in 1935, when it started, there were 42 workers supporting every retiree. Now there's less than 3 workers for every retiree. We're soon going to hit 2 workers for every retiree. There are European countries that are even worse off than that because the birth rates are declining. So if you don't know about Social Security, come to our classes, go to ssa.gov, start learning about it. Please, please, please don't plan on it as being your sole source of income in retirement. It's absolutely not going to carry you as far as you need to go.
We've said it before, thinking about Social Security is kind of just like, well, if it's there, I'll take the extra scoop of ice cream. But, you don't want to count on it to be included in that big sundae of your retirement, right? It's kind of the extra, if it's there, if it's going to help you, great, but don't rely on it 150%. Again, that phone number, if you have questions about Social Security, or if you visit ssa.gov and you have questions about what you find there with your accounts, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. High home prices and interest rates have pushed home ownership out of reach for many millennials. One of them is mother of 5, Jenny Wrangler of Arizona. She tells CBS Sunday Morning that she's fallen into this category called the forever renter.
We pay about $3,000 in rent. This home I'm renting goes for $600,000. We can't afford a $600,000 home, with our income, maybe $300,000.
And what would that get you around here?
It's not going to be a lot.
I wonder if a lot of people are looking at this and thinking, well, I'll be a forever renter. I mean, maybe even some retirees are facing this, or even a different issue. So instead of worrying about whether they can buy, they're asking, well, do I just stay put in my house? Maybe do I downsize, or do I even rent? What should I do? So when clients come to you with this question, Mark, How do you help them think this through? This is a big decision.
Oh, absolutely. And it's in my very first appointments with people. I'm talking about home ownership and future homes, and it always surprises people, the questions that I'm asking about that. But there's very express purposes for it. I mean, this is a massive problem across our country, certainly for the younger generation that can't afford to get into homes, partly because the older generation are holding on to some of these older homes. But the issues I would ask of the retirees is that place still suitable for you? I mean, is it a 2-story home with stairs that you don't need to be navigating as your health starts to change? That's a big issue. Are you close to family and friends? Are you close to the support services you need? Do you have too much money tied up in your home? Because equity in a home doesn't provide any return on investment. I mean, the home may appreciate, but that in Nevada is a function of how many Californians are moving here. It has nothing to do with if there's a mortgage or not. And so we need to look at all the assets, and those who are willing to think in non-traditional manners about home and home ownership absolutely can improve their estate, often by upwards of a third. I mean, we're talking significant material benefits. I mean, I literally had this conversation with everyone that I meet with about home ownership and home equity, how to maximize that home equity. People need to think differently in this generation. To be quite blunt, statistically, 99% of adult children do not occupy the parental home. It's not like the old homestead that we passed on from generation to generation. People are spread out across the country nowadays, and the first desire of adult children is to sell their parents' home and just take the cash. So if we know that, we can plan ahead and think differently. Let's talk about home equity, because that, frankly, is where the greatest portion of most middle-income Americans' wealth is, and so it needs to be part of the discussion. So I'm glad you brought that up. We talk about it with everybody. Matter of fact, we're hosting a class here on July 9th in my office with on home equity maximization, free to the public. So it'll be from 4 to 6, July 9th. We're actually flying a specialist in from Minnesota to speak. We always fill up. We do multiples of these classes depending on the demand. So, yeah, if people want to learn more about home equity maximization, alternative strategies, contact us. These are services that are done by other professionals outside of my office. I don't make any money off of it, but the education is so critical for retirees that we feel morally compelled to sponsor these classes, and we do regularly.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts' principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.